Hello, welcome to Creative View Podcast. It's Thursday evening and it's time to have some fun with knitting and crocheting. So most of you have been with me before. If not, I'm Catherine Kirby. I own a yarn shop in McSherrystown, which is on the cusp of Hanover, Pennsylvania, and about 16 miles from historic Gettysburg. So I have been busy at work and I wonder if you have too. Last time I showed you this. It is out of Vogue Knitting, a holiday issue, and I was intrigued by it because it really doesn't show you much, and there are no other pictures, but now I realize, that it does match the sweater. So it has both components of the sweater. It has this cable type and then it has a brioche. And I just put on my Facebook post, if any of you are afraid of brioche, don't be. It looks like ribbing, but it has great stretch. It is not a new stitch. It's been out a long time under the name Fisherman Rib. It's reversible, and so just one color brioche, you knit a row, and when you knit that row, it looks wrong. It looks like you have, I don't know if you can see this because it's fuzzy, but it looks like you have a garter stitch row, but then the next row, let me rip this out here, you purl a stitch, and then you knit into the stitch below. So the stitch below would be right there. You put it right in there, knit it, and pull that stitch off, and no, it does not fall off. I like it a lot. Now it's only supposed to be 13 inches of the cable stitch and then 13 inches of the brioche. The way they show it, it looks like it's really wide and it's all, I mean, I don't know. Mine doesn't seem, they might have had a lighter fabric, but it calls for a bulky fabric. And I like the reverse side too. I mean, if you have it all scrunched up, it does look like a pattern to me. This is with a Tahki yarn called Kismet. See, there's the wrong side. It's an alpaca blend. I'd like to make this again in a different, well there, yeah, it does squish together with really good stitch definition. It's not perfect here, but I always call my first one my prototype because if you're going to make mistakes, it's going to be in the first one. This is the yarn I'm using. It's a tannish white. So that's that. Because I used to have a doctor's office, I still get magazines and they come to my house. And I always think, hey, broaden your horizons, delve into some things that you normally wouldn't. So I looked at this and then my husband and I were talking about it and we were laughing because I thought it would all be about winter hunting, deer hunting, but here's a man that goes after wolves and how to call wolves and how squirrels can help you be a good hunter. And I know some of you hate to see animals shot. I don't like it either. There's bear hunting and historical points literally points, and an article about falconry. So, I mean, I was actually finding this interesting. There's falconry, and the oldest form of hunting is falconry. Your dog, your hunting dog, and let's see, grandfather and daddy's old guns. And there's something here I was looking at. Oh, alligator hunting. Gator hunting. Gator hunting. So there's the old, whoa, is that not scary or what? And you can hunt them with baited bank hooks, treble hooks, harpoons, crossbows, baited dowels, center fire rifles. And I heard of something called a bang stick, and I guess it's like a stick and it shoots them. But you bang stick it. And this kind of hunting is done in Louisiana, Florida, Texas, South Carolina, Georgia, Arkansas, and Alabama. It is not cheap, especially if you're a non-resident. Then there was a funny story in here because I am a dog lover, and I was reading it to my husband, Paul, and he was laughing. I think my husband and I have determined that we're past the age that we would be able to deal with a puppy. Some years ago, I heard my husband's sister, Debbie, say that, and I thought, aw, I get it now. My son and his wife are dealing with a beagle puppy now, and they are exasperated. So let's find the story here. Okay, Camp Talk, Adventures with Nellie, a capable retriever with unfortunate manners. The very last page. So, Nellie is a yellow lab who turns 4 years old next spring. And to be fair, she also has some appealing traits which I may or may not share. She has a surprisingly soft mouth. Labs do. Their mouths are soft and can scent a rooster from the next township. Is as athletic as a lynx and simply won't give up a retrieve even at the risk of her health. She's obnoxiously playful, but it's also fair to say that Nellie's boarding house manners obscure her finer points, and if you doubt that, then you've never seen her contort her body to sniff the passage of her own gas. So my husband thought that was a riot, but I have seen some animals turn a 180. I didn't actually pick Nellie. She found me the way Listeria finds sanitarians. She goes on to say, they say that people receive the dogs they deserve, and if I think back to my formative years, I see bits and pieces of myself in Nellie, minus the love of eating my own vomit and smelling my own farts. Definitely a guy's article. I was a stray. I roamed too widely, didn't come when called, and ran around without a leash or collar. So then he goes on to say, met his wife, he married, he had children, and these days that piece is often interrupted by Nellie typically doing something boisterous and borderline unforgivable. In our first 2 years together, Nellie's headlong enthusiasm earned her the name Dumbass. There was the time she ate rat poison in my neighbor's barn, the time she swallowed a golf ball and then passed it 8 months later in the most explosive evacuation you can imagine, the time she threw up 2 pounds of maggots hours after gorging on a dead cow, and on and on. What a quirky story, a guy's kind of story, but I enjoyed it too. So what else is going on? I found a pattern in a magazine, a knitting book for a very pretty fringe shawl. Now, I think it would be elegant in a a finer yarn, but I have some Casablanca. It is a light worsted wool yarn, and it just has kept me enthralled because of the color changes. Almost every row I'm changing colors, or I'm changing the shade of colors, and I have just enjoyed it so much. So I can make it as big or small as I want. That's definitely, I don't think, big enough. It is kind of pointy, but I like it, and I'm looking forward to keep going. Very simple pattern, but when you enjoy it and when the colors are constantly changing, and not too many of them changed mid-row. I mean, it's pretty amazing. Yarn is like that. It just is enthralling. So there's a man at my church who does bonsai trees, and I was asking him about them, and he gave me some books to read. So bonsai trees are just regular trees like you get outside, but you grow them indoors. So I read the book, took some notes, and 3 weeks later when he gave them to me, I forgot everything. But I do remember years ago, 20 years ago, whatever, I was given a bonsai tree by my sister-in-law for a gift, and we went on vacation, and I came home and it was dead. And I knew she spent a lot of money. So there have been nights when all of a sudden I wake up and say, the bonsai trees, and I come flying down here because they're dry and I don't want to kill them. Bob Ellis gave them to me, and he's a dear friend, and I respect him a lot. So, cheers from Hanover. This is, I didn't work in my ends yet, but I decided to do this with a bling yarn. So I did a strand of a gold yarn and then a strand of an eyelash yarn, because I was thinking when your child is out with other children, it's nice to be able to spot them. Like if you're at the zoo or a public place. And then I did the ribbing in Viking Odin, which is nice and bright. So it doesn't look like much. The name of it is Drops Pixie, but I had my 5-year-old grandson Tobin try it on, and it looked great. And he reminded me, Grandma, I'm not a girl. I said, yes, I know. So just like a little shrug or a little jacket, I'm really tickled with it. I would do it again. It was very easy, and then you had a place where you seamed it, and maybe I can get a picture sometime with a little girl in it. So there we go. The sweater that I told you about out of the book Hollywood Knits, that takes 2 strands of a kind of Aran weight cotton. I'm done the front. Whoa, that looks like a little hole there. It's very unusual that my knitting looks perfect. So I'm ready to do the back. That went very fast. Whoa, bang. If I'd only been working on that, I think it would be finished. So my husband, he had to go to Westminster, Maryland one day, which is about, I don't know, 40 minutes, 45 minutes. And his friend followed him, because our neighbor friend, and because they had to pick up the car and bring it back. And when my husband got home, they told me that they stopped at Maggie's. And I said, oh, years ago, I was supposed to go on a date to Maggie's. Well, after you've been married so long, your spouse thinks he knows everything about you, every story, but he raised his eyebrows on that one. And so I had to admit it wasn't a male-female date. I was married, but it was another woman, and she was a nurse. I was a nurse. We were both in college. I was studying to be a doctor. She was studying to be a veterinarian. Her husband left her on their wedding anniversary, and so she had a lot of financial duress buying him out of the house. And her great love was animals, and so she was studying. So things were rough. I was very broke, mother of 4 children, not much support from my husband, exhausted all the time, still working as many hours as I could. And this woman, Pat, told me, Catherine, when this is over, I'm going to take you to Maggie's. So I didn't really know what Maggie's was, but I could barely afford lunch. So to me, this was like this shining diadem at the end of the road, and I was going to get taken to Maggie's and treated to lunch. So this is awful. On the evening of our last exam before senior year, and then it was over, Pat had lent me some notes from a class. And that night, as I went into the room and I handed her the notes and said, thank you, it suddenly occurred to me how awful this looked. Like, why didn't I give her the notes earlier? Why did I keep them this long? And when I handed them to her, she started shouting obscenities at me. And I never saw her again. Oh. So, yeah, I'll just end that story with so. This is a book called Cuddly Cotton by Jenny Watson. And this pattern caught my eye. And it is not a seamless sweater, but that's okay. And I finished the hat. I haven't really had experience with bobbles. And even though I did them the way it said, I really didn't really get much. There's one. They didn't really stand out the way I thought, but as you can see the little pattern there, it's a nice yarn. It's called Knits, a DK weight, very soft, some silkiness to it. So now I started the front of the sweater. This is how you get that little peacoat edging, is that you knit a few rows and then you yarn over, knit 2 together, and then it gets folded up like that and stitched. That's how that's done if you've never done it. I was talking about the game I got my husband called Chronology, and I thought I would show it to you. He beats me all the time. He has a memory for history that's unbelievable. So you can play the yellow side or you can play the blue side, and it'll say something like this. The film Jaws opens in theaters. It becomes Hollywood's first summer blockbuster. Now, you don't have to know the year, but if you have this card down, you have to say if you think this event comes before or after. If you're right, you keep the card. If you get 10 laid out, you win. So here's, the year that The Wizard of Oz came out. And it's all kind of questions. Portland cement is patented. The first Winter Olympics are held in France. Just all kinds of things. The zipper is invented. Barbed wire is patented. And some of the things can really, really surprise you. And then the blue side goes way back to practically 0. And we have fun, but usually he ends up with 10 and wins, and I usually have 7 or 8, especially things in the 1800s. So we were knitting the little Sam Sedera and Katie sweaters, And I asked Alicia, who's a customer and friend, if she would make one of these out of Sunshine Coast, because it is really neat to see, for me to see how the yarns work up. This is a bamboo washable wool, nice and soft. It's a DK weight, so it is lighter than the other ones we were making. I didn't put the buttons on yet, but I like it a lot. I think it's sweet. And it's actually not white like it looks there. It's a light purple and like a grayish color. Isn't it funny how colors show up differently? How they don't just catch the light right or don't reflect right. So this is the baby Sophisticate that I showed out of the chunky Kaleidoscope put out by Your Baby, and I got the buttons on. It is amazing and fun how much time you can spend trying to match buttons up, and you don't want to spend a fortune. So I had a lot of choices, and I wanted something that looked boyish, and so I picked something that just kind of blended in. I tried to get more of this yarn, and it is discontinued and gone, but I still have some in the shop. And then I was doing a blanket out of a similar yarn called A Blanket for Phoebe, and I accidentally left it at the shop. Okay, so I was working on a crocheted scarf out of Louisa Harding Luci yarn, which is a very pretty yarn. Excuse me a minute. I lost my strand. I lost my ball. And I had a lady came in today and got some skeins of a really pretty brown color in this to make her husband a sweater. But I'm really in love with this color. I got about 50% more done. It's a fingering weight yarn. And when you think about it scrunched up and everything, it's going to be so pretty. I did get some books in at the shop about how to get colors to pull and create designs. So I can't wait to work on that. So this is a single crochet and then 3 doubles in the next single. You do the single on top of the 3 doubles and then the 3 doubles on top of the single. I think it's very similar to the Mindless Scarf, which is a Ravelry pattern, but it's 2 colors twisted together, and just the color changes keep me so engaged and keep my hook moving in and out. Oh, so Hartley, the dog, and I, we're taking longer walks, and the other day I thought, he's starting to look discouraged when we get back to the house. Like, oh no, we're back. So the other day, before we got home, I crossed the street and took him down to the next block. So a day later, when we got to that same spot, he pulled me across the street like, let's do that again. And he used to not really react to people. If we stopped to talk to someone, he'd just keep his head down. Now he's interactive and happy and excited to see people, and it really does my heart good. So what else? I think I told you, or maybe not, I made a recipe called orange chicken. It turned out great. When you boil your rice, you put a little orange juice in it and a little orange rind, but I then baked it with chicken. It was so good. My husband and I are trying to make a couple meals a week for a family who really needs some support. And it was pretty funny because I think I told you the first meal I made a roast. Then, you're at work. When that food is for somebody else, there's a different concern and worry. So my husband took that to their house, and I realized I didn't make anything for us. So we ordered Chinese. The second night, my husband made meatloaf, and I told him I have 2 packs of meat out, so you can make one for us. And I told you, I guess he never heard of doubling recipes, because when I got home and opened the oven, I said, "Where's ours?" And he said, "Well, I didn't make that yet." And he accidentally turned off the oven, so it hadn't cooked. And then the orange rice I was worried about, but that one I made, I thought, come on, we have got to get this right so we can make theirs and ours. Oh no, the meatloaf wasn't the one he accidentally turned the stove off. It was the rice and the chicken. I got home, opened it up, and again, I thought I made it easy because I made a big pan for them, a small pan for us with rice, and 2 chicken breasts for us. And when I opened the oven, I said, "Well, where's ours?" And he said, "Oh, I forgot to put that in." I'm thinking, oh, this is terrible. But that's the time that he accidentally turned the oven off. So one of these days, we're going to get it right. And you see new recipes, but you're kind of hesitant to make a new recipe for somebody else when you're not sure if it's going to work out or not, and you're not exactly sure of their likes and dislikes. So let's see here. I seem to have lost my, wait a minute, excuse my body here. So I've been taking my little grandsons, Nolan and Tobin, to church, and on Sunday, I saw Nolan. We have what's called Super Sundays, so there's soups and sandwiches after church, and we had a visitor that sat a couple rows up from us, and at the luncheon, I heard Nolan say to her, "Hi, I heard you're new. Welcome." And he's talking to her, and I thought, what a great kid. After the dinner, when we were ready to leave, Nolan said, "Grandma, can I get a voter's guide?" Then when we get out to the car, this piece of paper gets away from him, and he's chasing it all over the parking lot. It was his voter's guide. I thought, oh my goodness, out of the mouths of babes, right? So this, I just started today. It looks like a big ruffly thing, but I'm saving up the things I want to felt so I can do them all at one time. And it's a felted hat. I have one customer that loves to make felted hats. She does find out though that not all yarns felt the same, and when she combines certain yarns, it doesn't always look the way she wanted it to. But I cast on a lot of stitches, I purl a couple rows, I knit, and then I start my decreases. So I think this will probably be done maybe tomorrow. I did want to mention that when I did the baby Sophisticate and you do the bind off, she suggested a needle bind off. But because I had all those stitches, I didn't do it, because what you do is you thread a yarn needle, and I would have needed a lot of yarn, and you actually take it through 2 stitches and I think then 1, and you do the bind off that way. But I didn't want to have to pull all that yarn through. On a smaller item, I might like that a lot. So anyway, we had a lot of rain. It brought down leaves. So when Hartley and I would take our walk, we would walk through piles of leaves, and depending on what type of tree it was, it felt different on your feet. Like the maple tree leaves came down, and then the big mimosa leaves came down, and then at the corner there's a pine tree with all these delicate needles, and they all turned like a golden color and just fell off in masses. It looked like somebody spread hay everywhere. And it was fun walking in the rain and wading through all those different type of leaves. But now we're having Indian summer, and it's in the 70s. So fun, fun, fun. And so back to the Maggie's restaurant. So I get home from work one day, and my husband says, "Oh, you're late. I've been waiting for you." he took me to Maggie's. It was so sweet. We got crab cakes and he said, now you can say you've been to Maggie's. Wasn't that sweet? I thought it really was. So what are all of you doing? And what are you making? Write and tell me. And keep your chin up. God is in control. Things are going to work out in the USA. And keep those fingers working and shine, baby, shine.